Welcome to The Other Side of Medicine, a trusted source for education, not medication, for 35 years. In every episode of The Other Side of Medicine, we deliver health information your doctor won't tell you about. My guests are the nation's leading health experts in science-based natural medicine, physicians, authors, researchers, and clinicians. We believe natural medicine should be first, drugs and surgery last, and so we promise to deliver you the next generation of health information built on three principles: common sense, science, and cooperation with nature. I'm Dr. Krystosik. Glad that you're spending some time with us. And today, I'm pleased that we have a special guest. I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Russel Jaffe, and he's an expert in the field of integrative medicine, functional medicine, and he has got an extensive background in this field. He's a medical doctor, also has a PhD from Boston University. He graduated back in 1972. He completed his residency in clinical chemistry from the National Institutes of Health back in 1973. He's also board certified in clinical pathology, chemical pathology. And he's an advocate of healthcare system, the natural healthcare system for over 30 years. And this gentleman is really a special treat to have here on The Other Side of Medicine. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Jaffe to The Other Side of Medicine. How are you today, my friend?
Just fine, and thanks for having me.
Well, it's really a pleasure. You know, Dr. Jaffe, you were trained in standard and conventional medicine. How in the world did you get introduced to integrative medicine, natural medicine?
I came as a skeptic. I heard that Queen Nuan Wu could do things with little needles that we could not accomplish at NIH. I went to debunk him and spent 7 years in an apprenticeship with him in TCM and acupuncture. After that, serendipity favored me. A Cambodian Buddhist monk, 80 years old, moved in and lived with me for 30 years till he was 110. And he had highest frequent flyer status on several different airlines at that age, was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So I came as a skeptic, but the evidence is strong. The evidence is clear. The evidence is that if you go upstream to primary prevention, you can save at least 1 million lives a year. Out of the 2.6 million people who die in this country, at least 1 million die at high cost and with a lot of suffering early. I'm confident that we can add life to years and years to life. I'm confident that, as Paul Dudley White said, now he was the president's doctor and he invented the cardiogram, the EKG. He said, if you have heart disease or cancer before the age of 80, it's a fault of the lifestyle, environment, not necessity or science. In fact, he did say, in the 1930s, a heart attack was so rare at Mass General Hospital that if they had one heart attack in an entire year, they would write it up as a rare case. 30 plus years later, it was the biggest killer of Western civilization. Did genetics...
Why do you think that is?
Change in lifestyle.
Okay, so the American lifestyle, the standard American diet, the standard American lifestyle, we're digging our graves with our teeth, correct?
The standard American diet is SAD, S-A-D. And as Mel Brooks said, as the 2,000-year-old man, too many people dig their grave with their fork. Now, that's a strong statement, but it's distressingly true. Today, young people eat half of their calories from ultra-processed toxic, my word, they are toxic, packaged goods. I don't even want to call them food. Many colleagues have pointed out how disastrous ultra-processed and packaged and plastic-containing beverages are not acceptable in my home, and they should not be acceptable in yours. Microplastic, PFAS, glyphosate, things you probably don't even know how to spell, are accumulating rapidly. We know very little about their effects on biology. There are at least 48,000 chemicals that the EPA monitors in significant amounts, of which only 4,000 have been studied, and mostly alone, very rarely in combination. And a young man named Lance Wallace at EPA started to do the following. He had people wear a little device that sensed the air around them. Guess what? There was a lot of schmutz in the air. There's a lot of toxin in the food supply today. There's a lot of harm that comes from personal care products and certain beverages, which are very, very poorly, as in poorly, regulated. In Germany, the beer has to be done a certain way with no additives. If you saw the additives in the average beer in America, or wine, or whiskey, you would be horrified. I studied this. I was mortified. So,
yeah, you mentioned something really interesting, Dr. Jaffe. You talked about the diet of the Americans, the exposure to all these toxic chemicals and the plastics and all that. So I'd like to have you talk about the burgeoning science of epigenetics, because that interplays into this whole idea of lifestyle causing our diseases, as opposed to what we've been told for all these years, that genetics is the key factor. Could you please talk about that?
Yeah, let me take you back. The diet heart hypothesis says the amount of fat you eat influences your blood fats. The director of NIH and his protege who ran the Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute believed in this. It was never, as in never, true. Every time people change their lifestyle, and by lifestyle I mean epigenetics, just a fancier word for the same thing. Now, I was at that time collaborating with other people in the Heart Institute on animal models of human heart disease, and we showed definitively that the diet heart hypothesis was null. It didn't pass scientific muster, but that the quality, whether the cholesterol was oxidized, whether the LDL was oxidized or not, which is rarely measured, can be measured, and should be measured, because I can get you to a healthy blood fat profile with diet and bioavailable, smarter supplements. I can absolutely do that. Now, if you have enough antioxidants like ascorbate, nature's ascorbate, you don't have any, as in 0.0, oxidized cholesterol and oxidized LDL. If you have any of that, take more antioxidants. We know what to measure. They just are rarely measured. We need to go far upstream to primary personalized prevention, not better downstream symptom reactive care.
So talk more about genetics. I know we used to talk about biochemical individuality, but now it's epigenetics. Kind of delve into that a little more, okay?
Sure. 92% of your lifetime health is due to your epigenetic lifestyle. 8% is due to your genes and transgenerational influences, which means if you adopt the habits of your forebears, you will suffer today, earlier, and more. If you change your habits, your lifestyle, your epigenetics, you can add life to years and years to life. So genetics The Human Genome Project spent billions of dollars, and I got to talk with Jimmy Watson about this, and I said, you know, Professor Watson, that genetics plays a small part, but lifestyle plays a big part in health. And he said, of course. I said, so why wasn't it the Human Epigenetics Project? He said, that would have required politicians to change their habits.
Uh-huh.
I could get them to vote for a simple program. Now, he ran Cold Spring Harbor. This was a big scientific institution. He was a Nobel laureate. He was a giant of medicine. And he was a politician of science.
Mm-hmm. So let's delve into diet, because diet is really paramount when it comes to our lifestyle and our health. I really want to dive into your expertise on the alkaline way. Let's talk a little bit about that, because that's so important. The acid alkaline balance inside the body.
Acid alkaline balance. Most people have metabolic acidosis, and those who don't have metabolic acidosis have catabolic illness, one or the other. You can measure the urine pH on rising. This is the only time of day when the urine equilibrates with the fluid and the lining cells of the bladder. And based on your urine pH in the morning, you should take 2, 3, or 4 doses of magnesium and choline citrate. The choline citrate triples the uptake of magnesium. We have documented this scientifically. Others have clinically validated this. So metabolic acidosis is the opposite of an alkaline way lifestyle. My urine pH is 6.5 to 7.5 every morning, and I measure it mostly because I'm a scientist who likes to make measurements. If you're
what is metabolic acidosis for our listening audience?
Metabolic acidosis is lack of magnesium inside the cell. This is intracellular. Metabolic acidosis has been written about by Julian Seifter in New England Journal of Medicine and Harrison's Textbook of Medicine, and he teaches at Mass General, and he's the son of Sam Seifter, who was one of my mentors. So, acidosis.
What are the consequences of metabolic acidosis?
Oh, the consequences of metabolic acidosis are chronic fatigue, lack of vitality, mood disorders, anxiety, depression, obesity. What else? Cardiovascular, cancer risks. You don't get restorative sleep, therefore your body doesn't renew itself properly. Everyone makes abnormal or cancer cells every day. I want you, like me, to be able to eliminate them. It's technically called apoptosis, but there's a technique. If you're getting restorative sleep, a few minutes, every 90 minutes, a few minutes, the pineal tells the pituitary to tell the body to look for abnormal cells and eliminate them, to look for need for repair in the cardiorespiratory, cardiorenal system and repair, restore tolerance in the immune defense and repair system. Intolerance is very common. Food chemical hypersensitivity is very common. Now, I can get, and I would like to get, very specific and very clear about a sustainable diet that's nutritious, delicious, and yummy, what not to eat, because that's as important as what to eat.
Well, before we delve into that, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that you said that the knowledge about acid alkaline balance is in the medical literature. It's there. Why isn't it trickling down to the general practitioner or specialist?
Well, as you well know, most colleagues, dentists, doctors, osteopaths, chiropractors, naturopaths, most of them want to treat the symptoms of the person because that's how they make their money, that's how they get reimbursed, that's how the system is organized. It was a huge mistake when it was first introduced. It's a bigger mistake today. So if you want primary prevention, you need to find someone like you or me. We have the PIH Academy. This is the 6th year where we are training and certifying colleagues in this kind of personalized prevention. what to do and what not to do. It can get way confusing, and then it can get really clear. So I prefer clarity to confusion.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Okay, so get back to the diet that you recommend and how to keep your body in alkaline balance.
Well, the headline is whole and low on the food chain, but now I have to unpack that and explain. You eat lots of grasses. You eat no grains. They have been so manipulated. Trust me, no grains. Lots of grasses. Lots of things like millet and quinoa and fonio and buckwheat and wild rice. Wild rice is a grass. It is. Then, no cow dairy, no meat, no commercial meat, no commercial chicken, no commercial chicken eggs. Well, I like eggs. Okay, get duck eggs. Get quail eggs. We can even show you recipes that are fat-free, oil-free, sugar-free, whole, nutritious, delicious, and yummy.
What's wrong with organic chicken eggs?
I used to recommend them. Today, I have seen the evidence repeated that they have microplastic, which is a up and trending problem that needs to be stopped. Then, even the organic chicken eggs, for a variety of technical reasons, contain PFAS and glyphosate and other things. Now, they have slightly lower levels of these harmful chemicals, but I want to be chemical free. I want to free you from the illusion that regulation protects you.
That's really interesting. I've been eating organic chicken eggs, and I'm going to definitely change that. And I think that it's really a good idea to alternate your foods anyways. And so
it is.
Duck eggs would be a good choice.
And you can get them at many markets today have duck eggs and quail eggs, or just say no.
Yeah, that's interesting.
They have beautiful packaging for organic chicken eggs, which cost you a little bit more. What they don't tell you is the truth.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Even 20 years ago, 20, 40, 50 years ago, when I started in medicine and science, it was a different world. We're living in a different world. Thriving in the 21st Century is one of our 3 books. Thriving in the 21st Century means saying no to many things and yes to some surprising things like berries and fungi, mushrooms and sea vegetables and whole fruit, not juice, whole fruit.
Yeah, you mentioned you wrote a book, Surviving into the 21st Century. I'm sure you're aware of Victoria Sklevinska's book, Surviving into the 21st Century. I read that book years and years ago. That was one of my interesting introductions to natural medicine. I was a raw fooder back in the 70s for 3 years. So,
oh, great. And yes, there are many shoulders on which we stand.
Yeah. So let's talk more about how, for example, herbs interplay into an alkaline balancing in your body.
And let me tell you the truth about herbs and spices. They are among the least regulated and most contaminated. So you get organic or biodynamic, which is like super organic. All the spices that I have, many spices and herbs, all organic or biodynamic. And if not, if it's just commercial, it's got toxic metals. It's got chemicals. It's got solvents. It's got mold. It turns out most tea and coffee has mold. I get coffee that's roasted when they send it to me, and it's a Hawaiian pea berry. It's delicious, nutritious. And yes, I like a cup of coffee in the morning. Not 2 cups, but I like a cup of coffee in the morning. And I do change it up. I sometimes use herbal teas, but I prefer a cup of coffee. So now I've told you what's true for me.
Okay, good.
My
So talk about
my
talk
point
about
my
how herbs. I'll talk about
my
how herbs can help to balance
well,
the acid, the alkaline balance in the body.
herbs are concentrated sources of vitamins, minerals, cofactors, and fiber. If you eat contaminated herbs, you will confuse the body because good and bad both come in at the same time. And that is way confusing, stressful to the human body.
What are the best herbs to use to alkalize the body?
So I can tell you what I do. I have a 15-year-old permaculture biodynamic food forest in my front yard. We no longer have lawn to mow. We have a food forest, which has rosemary and thyme and parsley and sage and many other herbs. So what I do is I go out in the garden and I
Sounds like a Peter and Paul's song.
parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Yes, that's what I'm trying to evoke is that joyfulness and that willingness to put a little bit of effort in, and nature will nurture you. If you can, grow herbs. If you can't grow them, make sure you're getting fresh herbs from a quality source where they will emphasize to you, they exclude the mold and the solvents and the chemicals and the this and the that to deliver to you what you should be getting, which is lots of herbs and spices. And they have very specific qualities and properties, which, if you get interested, you can talk to Dr. Google or something like that and find out, oh, I have an ache in a muscle or in a joint. Well, there are certain herbs that are specifically good for pain. There are other herbs that are specifically good to help regrow connective tissue, collagen, elastin, what's called glycosaminoglycans. I can get biochemical if you want me to. Herbs and spices are essential for a healthy lifestyle, a healthy epigenetic, long life. I prefer the term youthful longevity. Some people say anti-aging. I'm not against aging. I want to grow for the next 30, 40 years in wisdom and saging. That's a term that was coined by one of my mentors.
Where does garlic and ginger fit into that scheme?
Well, if you want biodetoxification, you start with a C cleanse, which is nature's ascorbate taken as needed. Then you add polyphenolics, and third, you add GGOBE, garlic, ginger, onions, broccoli sprouts, brassica sprouts, and duck or quail eggs. Many research studies have shown that these are nature's biodetoxification foods. And biodetoxification is essential every day because we're getting exposed to toxins.
Wow. So you're saying that quail and duck eggs help in the detoxification process. Clarify that.
Yes, all of those, GGOBE, garlic, ginger, onions, brassica sprouts, and duck or quail eggs, are high in sulfur. Sulfur is metaphorically fire. It metaphorically allows the body to burn off toxins, to make them more water soluble, to make them more excretable, to get rid of them so that they don't do metabolic havoc.
Interesting. That is fascinating. I'm really excited to learn these things from you, Dr. Jaffe, and I'm sure our listening audience is going to really gain a lot of benefit from this. So please continue on and talk more about the way we should be living in our lifestyles to help to keep that acid alkaline balance.
Look at our blog on personal blue zones. Blue zones are where people live the longest and the healthiest.
Oh, wait, please let me interrupt just for a second. Dr. Jaffe, I wrote a book back in let's see, it was 1980, excuse me, I'm sorry, 1990. It was called Carbs from Hell. It's called Carbs from Heaven and Carbs from Hell.
Oh.
And in that book, I had maps of 3 of the blue zones, the regions. And I had that 6 years before National Geographic did it. And I went into great detail about the longevity of those people in those regions. I had food pyramids for each region. And so if there's any call to fame for me, I did that 6 years before National Geographic did it.
Congratulations. My colleague Artemis Simopoulos has published many books on the Greek Mediterranean lifestyle. It's not just a diet, it's a way of being in the world. And I recommend you emulate. Now, in Japan, in Costa Rica, in Greece, in other parts of the world, the specifics, the details are different. The qualities upstream, when you analyze the fiber in the diet, the purity of the whole foods, the joy they get in living and sharing with each other, maybe with sake or not, but traditionally made, uncontaminated. And there are whole towns now around the world where people live more than 100 and are alive, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I want to be in that minority too. And I've studied a number of people who got sick, then got well, and maintained that good health for a lifetime. So the notion that after a certain age you decline is only true if there's more bad and less good in your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the blue zones are something that, people are not aware of typically. And I visited the blue zones in Costa Rica and South America. And I'm also going to be going to Greece myself, which you had mentioned is one of the blue zones.
You should talk to Artemis Simopoulos before you go. She is way plugged into Greece.
I would love to have her on my podcast. So that would be great.
She'd be a great interview. She's articulate about omega-3 and omega-6 imbalance. She's articulate about the lifestyle as well as the diet, and she's utterly charming.
I would love it. Maybe you could send me the information about her. That'd be great.
Sure.
So yes, this is wonderful. This is information that people are not going to get from their doctor, and this is going to help. Yeah.
The reason that we have drrusseljaffe.com and blogs and recipes and reports and science and observations is because you are not likely to hear this from your average conventional doctor. They just don't know. They might be nice people. But in regard to nutrition, lifestyle, attitude, environment, sexuality and intimacy, exercise and stretching, they know from nothing, and so you should not listen to the people who don't know what they are talking about.
That's wonderful.
Words come out of their mouths.
Yeah.
You need a this, that, and the other thing. You need a statin. No, you don't. You need diabetes medicine. No, you need a lifestyle correction. So we can go on. Many, almost all, and Mark Hyman is very good about this. Andy Weil is very good about this. Dean Ornish is very good about this. Almost all chronic diseases and suffering that shorten the life of the people are lifestyle. They're not due to a deficiency of pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. You mentioned early on about vitamin C. I had Dr. Linus Pauling on my radio program. I was on the radio for over 25 years, and now I have a podcast, The Other Side of Medicine, as you know, as we're on right now. I had Dr. Linus Pauling on my radio program 4 or 5 times. He became a personal friend and actually tried saving my father's life. My father had a staph infection that actually killed him. And Dr. Pauling called the hospital for me to try to get them to do intravenous vitamin C. And they bucked him for about 2 days. And they finally agreed to it, but it was too late. My father died on the 3rd day.
I'm sorry for your loss. I knew Linus. I knew Irwin Stone. This was his next door neighbor who turned Linus Pauling on to vitamin C. So I got to talk to him because I recommend our C-Cleanse. We have lots of blogs and information about why you should personalize the amount of ascorbate you take each day. And he, at one time, recommended 9 grams, and then he recommended 18 grams. And I said, Dr. Pauling, surely you know that biochemical individuality, Roger Williams, etc., is true. He says yes. But he then said, doctors can only remember simple numbers like 200 cholesterol, 100 LDL, and 18 grams of ascorbate. No, not everyone needs 18 grams, but many people need more than 18 grams, and you can personalize the amount of ascorbate, nature's ascorbate you need every week by doing a C cleanse. Once a week, C cleanse, and then adjust the amount of ascorbate you take based on the C cleanse. We've been doing this for 30 plus years. We have thousands, and we are continuing to publish the evidence that the need for antioxidant ascorbate is wider than any other nutrient. And if you listen to Albert Szent-Györgyi, who isolated ascorbate from Hungarian paprika, he said, in biology, in life, ascorbate is as important as light and oxygen. That's really important. That's how important ascorbate is, but nature's ascorbate, not oxidized, damaged ascorbate.
Well, we're going to put a link to your C cleanse videos in our on our website and on this podcast as well. But let's shift for a minute right now to how important fiber is and probiotics in helping to keep an acid-alkaline balance.
So a man won the Nobel Prize, but he won the Nobel Prize for showing that a certain kind of childhood cancer could be managed. He was so inundated with invitations that he moved to Kenya, Africa, and didn't have a phone for years. And he taught me, when he was in his 90s, I heard the following lecture. You need prebiotics, probiotics, and symbiotics. You need prebiotics, which means 40 to 100 grams of fiber a day. The average American takes in less than 10. You can add fiber to many things. You can have high fiber whole fruits and berries and vegetables and yummy things. But you probably need supplemental fiber. So we have a raw, unprocessed fiber available by the scoop if you need it. Then, in addition to prebiotic fiber, you need probiotic bugs. They have to be alive. Dead bugs, and some companies marketed that we have many, many, many dead bugs. I wouldn't take that product. I want to know how many of which species. We have 10 different species to proliferate your microbiome and your digestive microflora. And then you need symbiotic. You need recycled glutamine, which we invented, so that the enterocytes, the lining cells of your intestine, require glutamine for their energy. They are so energy intensive that they don't get energy from anything else other than glutamine. Now, a Harvard researcher recommended a lot of glutamine, and people ended up with glutamate, excitoneurotoxin, which I don't recommend. So we built on that work to recycle the glutamine tenfold, never build up glutamate, and get the benefit of renewing your digestive tract. Many, many people have dysbiosis, enteropathy, maldigestion, stomach dysfunction. They just don't feel good because their gut is not happy. And you
hold on. Time out, Dr. Jaffe. You're going a little too fast for our listening audience. What is dysbiosis?
Dysbiosis means too many bad bugs. And the good news is good crowds out bad. If you take enough probiotics that are good, you will crowd out the pathogenic dysbiotic organisms.
Okay, so what if a person has too many of the harmful microorganisms living and they end up with something like SIBO, the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? What can they do?
We know you could list 100 chronic diseases of the human GI tract, one of which you have just correctly identified, and it's rampant But I will tell you, of the people that follow our program, a 6-month lifestyle epigenetic program based on a personalized profile of predictive biomarkers, 100% of the people with SIBO lost it. Good crowds out bad. SIBO, bad. Not necessary. And if you treat that with, say, anti-something, antibiotics, anti-parasitics, anything with anti in its name, I don't use. I give the good to crowd out the bad.
Yeah, that's so important because people are using antibiotics like candy. Doctors dish them out like candy today. And I'd like to have you talk a little bit about how that really causes disruption in the gut totally, and then causes so many ramifications down the road for people. I know so many people are ending up with C. difficile infections over and over. This is how people are getting caught up into this whole pharmacological type of medicine and not learning about what we're talking about here today. How do people get out of this mess? I mean, we're really talking about helping people to gain the knowledge. And so I love your work that you're doing.
I beg to differ. You have to choose a health coach or health professional that's on your wavelength. Someone who has studied at our PIH Academy, someone who is knowledgeable about integrative, comprehensive, holistic practices, not just substitute an herb for an antibiotic. That's downstream symptom reactive care, and that's what dominates in our current system. And in the next generation, I often do things for the next generation. This will be passé. I know right now they make their living and the reimbursement flows, etc., for this specific reason. It's all incestuous. It's all
You know, Dr. Jaffe, I'm actually putting a video out here very shortly. It's called The Doctor of the Future. I would love to put you on that video. You deserve to be there. And I have a lot of the real mentors that we have over the years watched grow and help people to learn about functional medicine. I have a lot of them on this video, and I would really want to put you on there. So
Thank you.
It's just really great to have you sharing this kind of information with us. So the bottom line is, though, is that people are afraid to make changes. Their doctors tell them that, natural medicine doesn't work. They tell them you have to be on these drugs for the rest of your life. What do people do?
Let me jump in on what you said correctly. Fear is the major tool of conventional medicine. I want a doctor who's smarter than me. I want a doctor who tells me what to do and what not to do. But I don't want a doctor who tells me, be afraid, be really, really afraid. And I'm going to now use words that I'm not going to really explain, but they sound pretty good because they're Greek or Latin or wherever they come from. No, you want a health coach or health professional that is certified in this kind of functional medicine. And then hopefully you will enjoy the interaction, because it turns out one of the most important variables of whether you're going to get benefit from a health professional is whether you have confidence in them. If you doubt your doctor, change your doctor. Your doctor is not likely to change, but you can change your doctor.
That's a good point. That's really a good point. Well, this has been really intriguing, and I've really enjoyed having you on the podcast. Well, I definitely want to have you come back. Will you be willing to come back again?
Oh, sure. No. This is fun for me, as it is for you. I get to reach out to the world through these kinds of conversations. And hopefully people will be informed, inspired, and motivated to take a small step. Little steps add up to big benefits. You don't have to learn everything in 20 minutes.
Before you leave, what is the number one, the most important thing that you think an individual has to do to be able to stay healthy and live a long life? What's the number one thing?
Joy in living.
I'm sorry?
The most important thing of whether you're going to live long and well is whether you take joy in living, whether you do things that you enjoy and you smile and you laugh. It turns out if you do things while you're enjoying them, they are way more beneficial than if you're doing them by obligation or necessity. So I might surprise you. I have now studied that exact subject. What determines the quality and duration of people's lives?
Well, laughter is the best medicine, no question about it.
Laughter is the best medicine. And I knew the fellow who had ankylosing spondylitis did not.
Norman Cousins.
I knew Norman. And I knew his doctor. And NIH would not let his doctor infuse vitamin C into him. He checked him out of the clinical center, checked him into the Hay Adams Hotel, which is a very nice hotel, in a hospital bed. He watched reruns of Candid Camera and he laughed. And Jeffrey infused 25 grams of vitamin C twice a day. And he went into remission and then had a post-career that was utterly astounding at UCLA, where he brought together a whole bunch of disparate people to focus on quality of life, not just duration.
Dr. Jaffe, thank you for that. That's really a way to thank you so much for giving that parting wisdom. We're going to have you back. I just want to thank you for today, for all the wisdom you shared with us, and I look forward to having you on again. So God bless you, my friend.
Mutually. Be well.